I'm going to share our screen. Good morning, Janice. We are now recording. Sure. Okay, let's go over as we share our screen. It's 11:04. May have some more folks coming in. Let me do this again. I hope you all are doing well. There we go. I want to, here we go. So we find ourselves right here in week 5. Can y'all believe it? Week 5. So I just want to make a couple of announcements. So of course, today, week 5, we are meeting on Monday. I know it's confusing sometimes. Next week, if you look at your calendar, can you believe it? Next week, we are in, well, actually, the end of this week is going to be July. And next week is a holiday, which is July 4th. So we will not meet on Monday, the 4th. We will meet on Tuesday, the 5th. Okay. So next week, just giving you a heads up for those who are watching and those who are here, jot your calendar. We will not meet virtually on Monday. That's a holiday, the 4th. We will meet on Tuesday, the 5th. Tuesday, the 5th. All right, let's do a little review of this week, the 5th. It's the 5th week. This is the week of the 27th. This week, we're going to get real interesting. So you got two things. We're going to talk about salaries in your discussion post 5. In discussion post 5, we're going to talk about bivocational. And let me just pause real quick. And I know we have some pastors on here. What does it mean to be bivocational? Anybody heard that word before?
Professor, that's working, pastoring and working a full-time job.
Amen. It is. Marshall, I'm gonna just be nosy. Do you work another job as well?
Well, I'm retired now,
You retired.
Professor, but for 15 years, I pastored 2 churches and worked a full-time job. And
My
so that I enjoyed all of it.
So actually I'm gonna come back to you when we get our session started today because I do want to ask a couple of questions about that. Any other pastors on the line that have worked another job? Not sure. Okay. So Marshall hit it for us. Bivocational, bi meaning two, vocational meaning work. So this means that the pastor, we were talking from week 1 and week 2, the pastor is shepherd or leader of this organization of this church. And they find themselves working at the church as a pastor, but also working outside of the church. They might be a teacher. They may be, social work. They may be a counselor. They may work somewhere. Wherever it is, they have found that they also need to have, hey, another job as well. They may have family. They might be single, but it just simply means that maybe that income from the church is just really not enough. Pastors are more educated now, and sometimes when they're coming into, remember chapter 1 when we talked about the pastor's commission or the pastor's calling? I believe the chapter 1 was that Proctor or Taylor? Taylor talked about this is a weighty call that comes upon the person. Now, y'all remember, some people may be called into ministry or pastoral leadership when they are older. maybe in their 50s or 60s. Some people may start younger, in their 20s or 30s. It just depends. There's no particular age stamp that it must be. Okay, so let's say for the person, just as an example, let's say for the person who's been working all their life, and that, let's say they're a teacher and they've been working for 20 something years, and now their life is taking a different turn in terms of ministry. They may not give up that particular job. They may be looking forward to retirement and all that good stuff, but they may also love it. So that's why you may find folks with different types of education prior to going into ministry. All right, anyway, in your discussion post, you're going to read this article. The link is posted there for you in the little blue, and you're going to read that article about ministry is on the rise and how bivocational ministers are embracing it. Sometimes there are challenges with it. And in your post, I want you to reflect on the challenges, the ups and downs of bivocational pastoral leadership. It's not all bad. And I want you to discuss how church bodies can also support pastors better financially. Sometimes the pastor finds themselves saying, look, I can't eat and I can't feed my family on this salary. It is what it is. I got to go out here and get another job. So I want you to think about that. And if the pastor works another job, what do you think? What other issues could arise? Also, as Reverend Marshall was saying earlier, if you have experiences firsthand as a pastor, please make sure that you add that in there. It makes our conversation very rich. Okay. So that's your discussion post. I'm catching up this week. I'll be catching up on your quizzes from last week. Also, for week 5, got one more thing. For week 5, today we're going to talk about the pastor in chapter 5. I think we're in 5. We're going to talk about the pastor as administrator. Chapter 4, I'm sorry. And you're going to read this article. Now, I'm going to warn you, the article is a bit long. You don't have to read it all word for word. You might want to skim, take it in some chunks, and take some notes. Okay. But the article is entitled The Impact of Pastors' Spiritual Practices on Burnout. Our pastors are becoming very burnt out. The link to the article is right here in blue. Okay. And after you read this article, take your time with it. You might not want to read it all in one setting because it could be a little long, but I want to introduce you to reading journal articles in this type of academic setting. And after you read it, I want you to reflect on how these pastors tried to work on their burnout, and what were some of the things that they did to alleviate their spiritual burnout. Also, y'all, I want you to reflect on how now maybe the COVID-19 has, what's the word, impacted some of that burnout that pastors have been experiencing. Okay. So let me come back to you. Good morning. Let me come back to you and recap. So remember, for this week, we have our discussion. Okay. You have your discussion post on 5, discussion post 5, and your journal article about burnout. Okay. Before I go on anymore, any questions? All right. Now, we're going to get to our chapter today. I do also want you to check your email last week. So everybody that's here and those who are watching the video, last week, I emailed you on the group that you have been assigned to, and it is in that email, and I'm going to pull it up in just a second in case you forgot, but please check your email. You've been assigned a group for our virtual forum to be held in July. Okay. And group captains, I want you to reach out to those individuals. You can start brainstorming. And when we come together next week, We want to just have like a little outline of what we want to share on in July for our virtual forum. One more time, our virtual forum will take place July the 21st. So I want to recap that. Everybody check your email. I sent the email last week. Everybody should have been assigned to a group. Okay. We had like self-care, counseling, things of that sort. Your group leaders, I want you to reach out to those individuals. I'm going to send some individual emails to those groups and just check in and see how you guys are doing. I know it's difficult. You don't have to necessarily call each other, but if you want to call, that's fine. Exchange phone numbers. But you can just shoot out ideas of what do we want to hit, what do we want to share under our particular category. Okay. All right. Good morning. Let me make sure I got everybody. Got some folks just joined. Good morning, Dejanere, and good morning, Sharon. All right, everyone. Let's transition. And I'm going to upload this PowerPoint. It is not quite there on your D2L page just yet, and I will upload this as soon as we are done. Today, we're going to talk about the pastor as administrator. And we're going to have a fruitful discussion today. um, let's talk about administrator and those people who are probably working on the self-care group. You're going to get some tidbits today from today's lesson, as well as we're going to come back to some of our class members who work in a pastoral role. All right. So I'm coming from, if you have your book, I'm coming from chapter 4, pastor as administrator, and this is Dr. Taylor this time. And let me open up with this real quick. He starts off with a quote from Acts chapter 20, verse 28. Mm-hmm. And it says, keep watch over yourself and over all the flocks. Somebody mute your microphone. Of which the Holy Spirit has made you overseers to shepherd the church of God. So remember, we keep coming back to that image or the analogy of shepherd and sheep. The shepherd is the individual, the sheep, the people. Now, remember, once again, the shepherd, yes, you could be a pastor or whatever, a pastoral role, but you could also, this person could also be over a religious organization. Let's go to the top. Let's answer that question first and foremost. Pastor as administrator on chapter 4. What is an administrator? Because if this person is going to serve in pastoral leadership, they've got to have some administrator, what's the word? Administration skills. So administrator is somebody who's basically responsible. They're like the manager of a particular organization or business. They're going to oversee the, what's the word? The activities, the day-to-day activities of that organization. And y'all remember, a church is also an organization. You know, sometimes they say, well, it's not a business. And in some ways it is a business because you do handle money, you do have human resources issues and things of that sort. Okay, so we have a few things that we can discuss when we talk about administration. Let me just pause right here. Let me hear from the students. You can open your microphone. If you're going, okay, how do I ask this question? Do all pastors have good administrative skills? Do all pastors have good administrative skills?
No.
No.
Okay. All right. I heard about 3 no's. Okay, now I'm gonna push that. Why? Why not?
it might just be a person's natural abilities are not geared toward administration. Yeah, they may have the love and the passion for God and delivering the word, but there's there's a separate skill set that's required to be an administrator. And so when a pastor has both, the spiritual part and the administrative part, then it works well. Not all pastors are great administrators.
That is correct. Anybody else want to add on to Walter?
Yes, Professor. Also, the training, they might not be trained well enough to handle it.
May not be trained. Miss Juhart said no. They may not be trained. I'm gonna type some notes in here. I'm gonna come back to our PowerPoint. Don't get scared. They may not be trained. Um, Walter said in the beginning, this person may have certain skills. Maybe they're great at teaching. Maybe they're great. Some are just really great at in their oratory skills. They're really good in preaching or presenting things. But administration is a skill. Administration is also a gift. Okay, Ms. Duhart said they may not be organizers or they may not have the skill set needed for the qualities of an administrator. For example, time management, yes, ability to multitask, works in a fast-paced environment, ability to problem solve. That is so correct. So, I'm sorry, before I keep going on, anybody else want to add? Our question was, why is it that, you know, every pastor may not be a good administrator? Okay, Ms. Duhart's typing. So it doesn't mean necessarily that the person that comes to this pastoral leadership role is going to have everything 100%. Some might be great administrators and still got to brush off the preaching part. Some might be great administrators and they may have to work on the teaching part. It's all a learning process. All right, Ms. Duhart said, ability to critically think and reason is also key. Most pastors only think that the Bible is the only solution or skill set that is needed. Okay. All right, so that's good. So we got a good conversation going. Let me go back to our PowerPoint lesson. I've got some more questions for you as we talk about administrator. So you're right. You have the basis that the administrator is over this organization, is over this church. Now remember, the church is an organism. The church is functioning just like a business. We have people, we have functions, we have activity, we got to hire people, we have to take care of the building, all of those type of things. So it's not just about, preaching on Sunday or whatever. So many things will happen throughout the week to keep this organization moving. Here's my next question for you. Dr. Taylor in chapter 4, got all my little notes here. Dr. Taylor in chapter 4 says, how does the church do God's work in God's way? Um, and the next question that I have for you is, he says, a good pastor must balance the roles of being the shepherd and a manager. Okay, let me say that again. Dr. Taylor says, a good pastor must balance the roles of a shepherd and manager. Not necessarily the two are the same. So I'm going to come back to you. Let's discuss. How can the good pastor balance those two roles? Let me come back to you so I can see. How do we balance being shepherd and manager? So we've got two things to work on. Okay, I see Ms. Duhart's typing. Okay. One way to balance is to use the gifts provided to the church. Tell me a little bit more, Ms. Duhart. Spiritual gifts. And she's typing her answer in there. Um, as she's typing, the yeah, yeah, okay, all right, great. All right. And so she says right here at the bottom, those gifts are, she's like, you got to get help. You can't do all of it. There may be helpers in your congregation, some people who are deacons, or, they're different levels or different names at different churches, but the pastor is not able to do everything 100% by themselves. Okay, that's how we can have some balance. Okay, and the office of the bishop as well. Okay, Miss Janice says use your organizational skills. Okay, organizational skills. This is an organization, although it is a spiritual entity, it is still an organization. Remember, y'all, that has business aspects to it. And so sometimes when the pastoral leadership doesn't use those organizational skills that you would probably use at your job, if you were teaching, or if you were working at McDonald's or whatever it is, there you're going to need organizational skills to keep that church or that religious organization moving and functioning. Looking at your communication strategies, looking at your different departments and how they're working with each other, what do we call it, inter relationships, how each department works with each other and not working in silos. Okay, so as we come back to that question, y'all, as we talk about pastoral leadership and balance, and one of the things that we might be highlighting in our virtual forum. Thank you, Ms. Duhart. In our virtual forum, is there's got to be some type of balance, and the pastor cannot do everything. We're going to talk a little bit later about burnout. Okay, Troy said God has given the church the ministry of helps. We need help. Okay, so it's the same thing, y'all. If those people, I know we have a lot of folks here who work other places, right? If you work, we work in schools, some people, have been in the military. All of these particular places have brought us experiences. All of those are organizations. Somebody is spearheading it. Mm-hmm. Oh, right. Um, Mr. Lee said, separate business from spiritual. And I'm going to come back to you, Mr. Lee, because I want you to expound on that. In all of the organizations that we have been a part of, whether it's academic, military, whatever, there needs to be some organizational structure. And those are your administration skills that are going to be needed for that pastor. Okay, Mr. Lee, I want to come back to you. Separate business from spiritual. Open your microphone. Tell me a little bit more. I want you to expound on that. Yes.
What I'm saying is that uh, business, regardless of the organization, is business. There are certain rules that you go by, and spiritual, you have to follow God's leadership. So you got two different uh, aspects of it.
And isn't that the tricky part sometimes, where in a religious organization or church, you do have the spiritual entity of it, and we are not throwing that away. We're not saying that. But remember also, we have this organization that needs some type of structure. And
Exactly.
there you go. And when our religious organizations lose or don't grasp, what's the word? The seriousness of this is a business. Let's say, for example, we need to hire someone. Do we just hire anyone off the street to be our administrator? No. Okay. We got to do it just like a business would. Maybe we put something out and say we're looking for, we have a job description. That's what I mean. We have a job description. We have a salary. We do a interview process just like another organization would do.
True.
Yeah. We can't say, hey, do you have a friend? Can your daughter do it? Yeah. I don't know if y'all want my daughter to do it. That'd be a mess. Ms. Duhart said, or do not follow the organizational plan of God. And when they don't, shipwreck can occur. You got that right. All right. Good job, everybody. Let's go back to our lesson. I'm going to come back to you. I saw some more thoughts coming up. I want you to look at the bottom of your screen. Y'all see my PowerPoint? And Dr. Taylor says, we don't want to be consumed by the three B's. The three B's. What are the three B's? Baptisms, buildings, and budgets. He said, you don't want to be consumed by the three B's. He said a pastor told him that. Another pastor, he said, this is on page 53, he said he was doing like a performance evaluation that based his salary on such guidelines as how many people he brought into the church. All right, let's just pause right there before we go on. When we talk about this thing of administration, Dr. Taylor says we don't want to get consumed by the three B's. And when we're talking about baptism, buildings, budgets, getting consumed with, this is how much money we have. And we have all these buildings and we're doing this, or we're raising money for the building and the building never came to fruition. We baptized 80 people last week, and that is so wonderful. Anybody else want to jump in there? Why do you think he says don't be concerned with those three areas only? Don't be consumed with the three B's. Uh-oh.
Miss Berry.
Yes.
What was the three B's? It was baptism, building, and what was the last one?
Very good. Baptisms, buildings, I'm gonna put it in here, and budgets. Baptisms, buildings, you got a big church now, and budgets, money.
And your question was what was the question one more time?
That's right, that's no problem. Dr. Taylor says we shouldn't be consumed with the three B's. He said, don't get consumed with those three B's: baptism, buildings, and budgets. Why?
So I think maybe the reasoning on why he said not to get consumed in those things is because it's easy to lose focus of what it is that God had originally called you for in your area or in your field, whether that is being the pastor or being whatever it is in the church. You get what I'm saying? And then on top of that as well too, church is, my own personal opinion, I feel like church is supposed to be more like a relational type of feel in a sense of a way, like a second family for your home or for you and your home. So if I keep coming up to the pastor and the pastor keep talking about money, 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 that's not going to make me want to stay, because it's like, okay, are you, am I here because of money, or am I here because of God? And I know that God doesn't force me to do or give X amount, XYZ on whatever the amount is. Like he'll place it on your heart to do, whatever it is. But I shouldn't have to be reminded or continuously be reminded. And then on top of that, that takes everybody off of their course or off of their job. Originally, like I said, what God had it called and intended on you to do. God just asks us to give him our yes and give him, and let us be willing and open and move how he wants to move, and not have to worry about, okay, where's the finances, where's the resources, where's this, where's that going to come in at, or this is how many numbers, because at the end of the day, God knows how it's always going to end. We don't. So I personally feel that that's why he said don't focus too much on that, because when you focus on too much of that, then you can start doubting yourself or operating out of performance rather than operating out of love and what it is that God has called for us to do.
Wonderful. Very good. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, when we get consumed, or the leader gets consumed, should we say, with the three B's, what's the word? The focus is off. There is nothing wrong, believe me, nothing wrong with beautiful buildings. Nothing wrong with setting a budget and having good money. Amen. Nothing wrong. And please, we got to keep baptism and sharing and making disciples. However, Dr. Taylor warns the pastoral leader that when the person gets stuck on numbers, that's where problems can come into being, because now you're number driven rather than, I heard Dejaneer said relational. So when we're number driven, it's hard to build relationships. Miss Janice said, and you might want to add a little bit here, Miss Janice, if you want to open your microphone, the leadership of the flock should always take precedent. You want to add a little bit on there for us? Tell me what you mean. I think she may mean the leader, the pastor takes leadership maybe for the, okay, she's typing in there, for the activities of the church. Good discussion today. Okay, all right. Thank you, Janice. All right, everybody. Okay, let me go back to our slideshow. Now I have a question for you. To over pastor or under pastor? That's the question, right? Dr. Taylor talks about this issue of how much should the pastor be involved. I believe this is on page 40, 54 and 55. So he talks about this issue of over pastoring. So over pastoring would be, I'm in everything. They know about everything. They have their hands in everything. Or under pastoring, maybe not knowing enough about your organization. So I have a question for you, two questions on the right-hand side. Everybody understand over pastoring and under pastoring? All right. How much hands-on administration does a pastor really need to do? My next question for you, does the pastor need to know everything? Everything in the church? Somebody want to open their microphone and answer either of those?
Yes, Professor, this is Marshall. I think the pastor should have his hands on everything and want to be involved in everything, because some things can sneak up on you that you don't know, and it'll be a surprise, a big surprise. So if you got your hands on it, you don't have to control it, but
Oh,
let them know that you are the CEO, and the CEO should know and have his hands on everything, right down to the broom closet. If it's not enough brooms, get the brooms. Thank you.
okay, Marshall, keep that microphone open because that's good. I heard you say the pastor needs to know everything as a, but you might not get down and do everything, because he said if you don't, something can sneak up on you and bite you in the back, and you're like, where did this come from? I didn't know. That's not good, is it, Marshall?
No, that's not good at all.
Mhm.
That's not good at all, especially finance and the upkeep of the building. You would be embarrassed if the air conditioner is not working in July and you have a big program come and guests come and they're sweating. You said,
Right.
well, we should have took care of this on Thursday before Sunday. Why didn't we take care? But if the pastor is got his hands on everything, and the stewards or the trustees that take care of the church come and say, hey, pastor, we got a problem. We got a problem. It's going to cost a little extra to get it fixed by Sunday. get it fixed. That's the bottom line.
So Marshall, what I also hear you saying here, and I see Ms. Duhart, what I also see you saying here is communication.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
the pastoral leader needs to be in communication with the sub leaders, you know what I'm saying? Uh
Yes.
Different groups. Okay, very good. I see y'all going to town in this chat. Mr. Lee, first consideration should be to seek God first. Very good. Ms. Duhar, it should, y'all, my eyes bad. It should not be a specific metric or percentage on how much a pastor should know. Okay. It's not a cookie cutter. It is a la carte. She says temperance and discernment will show the pastor how much, how far, and what is missing. That's good. And so I think that all goes back to that C word I put right there. The pastor, the one in leadership, the one in pastoral leadership. I'm big on communication. Y'all know I'm also teach communication classes. And if the okay, let me go back a little bit. If this, remember y'all, the church is an organization. We can also see the church as a business. And if, yes, thank you, Mr. Lee. And if that communication, if we have communication breakdown, I'm gonna say with the music ministry, and music ministry is not telling you we're having an issue with the choir people aren't coming, we have an issue with the drummer, and then when you come on Sunday and drummer's not there, you don't know that there was some disgruntledness, you didn't know that the drummer quit or whatever the situation was. There needs to be, thank you, okay. Janice says there needs to be regular meetings with department heads. We have to have communication. So communication needs to flow. Watch this. Upward from your departments, just like it would in any other, at the IRS, at the FBI, whatever it is. Communication needs to flow upward, and communication needs to also do what? Flow down. Okay. Troy said if the pastor is the overseer, he or she should know everything. Yes, because they are, that word, accountable. Accountable. It pains me to see, um, and I'm trying to get one of my friends, he was a pastor at a Winston-Salem church, a Presbyterian Winston-Salem church. There was a big financial fiasco. I think I can put it like that as a summary. It was real bad, where FBI had to come in and investigate some things because of somebody got their hands on some money. And his issue was he felt so bad because he didn't know that so much of that had been brewing and he'd been there and didn't know. We're held accountable. Okay. So whether you would have had an Amazon, right? If Amazon is doing something and they didn't know that people aren't getting their boxes, they're gonna be held accountable. Okay, very good. Let's go back here. I'm gonna come back to the chat. Y'all doing very good today. Okay, so remember that word, those two words, under pastoring and over pastoring. Somebody can put that in the chat. Under pastoring and over pastoring. So it looks like from our discussion in the chat today, or as you were saying, you guys want to go somewhere in the middle. You definitely don't want to go under because you're going to be the one that's blind and doesn't know anything. And then when you're going over, you don't let the people do nothing. It's almost like you ever had a boss that what do they call it? Micromanages you. That's the worst. All right. Okay. So now we're gonna do some work. We're gonna do some work together. If you look over here on the right hand side, church programs, and so Dr. Taylor says that church programs, um, excuse me, the New Testament church took its mission seriously, and it also gives us a guide on how to do ministry. He said it's not like a blueprint, like you got to do it this way, because churches change. The church in 2022 as an organization does not look like the church in the book of Acts. And so Taylor says that the church programs should grow out of recognized needs. Church programs should grow out of recognized needs. Now, here's my question. Go to the bottom left. We're going to brainstorm together. Let's imagine, Atlanta Metropolitan State College is located literally in the heart of Atlanta. Most of you are familiar and been on campus, but I know some of you are outside of the city of Atlanta, but y'all been to Atlanta before. Y'all know Atlanta. All right, so we're going to brainstorm. So we are now finding ourselves a part of the AMSC church. If we attended this church in Atlanta on Metropolitan Parkway, what are the recognized needs of the community? What are the recognized needs of the community? Let me come back to you so I can see you. So, okay, I saw some questions here. Ultimately, the pastor has to bear the responsibility for all that goes on in the church. We got to communicate. Very good. All right, church folks, what are the recognized, I want y'all to remember this word, recognize, can I type that? Needs of the community. So Taylor says that if you're going to develop programs, if you're going to develop some type of program for your church inside or for the outside in the community, it needs to come from a recognized need. Let's just pause right there. What do we mean by a recognized need? What's that? So let me ask you this question. Y'all drove up and down Metropolitan Parkway before?
Okay.
I see you.
Well, just driving up and down housing, housing improvement,
Yeah.
or some things that just see naturally driving up and down. There may be community needs like access to parks or recreation, for the community. I don't pay that much attention to that since I just come straight from the expressway and from University Avenue down to the school. But those are some of the things I would see if AMSC was a church sitting in the middle of this area.
Yes. Okay, so you were thinking inner city Atlanta, housing, parks and recreation issues. Troy said, yes, there's a homelessness problem. Yes, it's bad. It is, y'all, it breaks my heart. When you turn, y'all, I'm bad with that. So what's that Metropolitan? Cleveland. So I get off at Cleveland and I turn left right there to go down. It's heartbreaking, sometimes to sit in your car and to watch these individuals. Dejanir says better and updated transportation systems. Good, better after school. Oh yeah, better after school programs. There's a school right down the street. Okay, so what you're doing, class, is you are saying we recognize we're in this area. Remember, recognize needs. Now, you didn't say, oh, we need a swimming pool. You didn't say, oh, we need, something off the chart that is not needed. So what you did is you looked around and you said, this is what I recognize that we need. We have a bad homeless population. So let's say, okay, let's deal with the homeless. If this was our church and we're developing a program, okay, Dejanir said activities that not only includes the community, but as well as help our households from the inside out. Yes. Oh, can't spell program. We were developing a program for homelessness, or as Dejanir said, maybe an activity that works with all of the family, with the household. Somebody talked about after school programs, right? That's from the recognized need. You can't say, oh, well, we need a Costco down here. Really? That's not the need, because this area maybe can afford Costco. Maybe we advocate maybe for another more affordable, what you call it, grocery store, what you call it, farmers market, and things like that, fresh vegetables and fruits. Okay. So the whole point is, Dr. Taylor says, if you're going to organize things and do it well, and if you're going to have programs, now remember, the pastor needs to be over the program. You don't want to start a program that does not have a need in the congregation or the community. It's just foolishness. Okay. Programs to inspire improvement. Yes. Oh, we didn't put this in here too. Addiction.
Mhm.
Maybe addiction, a drug program, NA, AA meetings. So maybe we use our imaginary church and we say, well, look, we recognize, remember that? We recognize that there is a need to help folks in this area with addiction problems. We're going to use our space as a meeting for NA and AA meeting groups. Okay. All right. So you understand what we mean by recognize needs. Because you may have those in leadership, you may have somebody raise their hand and say, yeah, I think we should, and there's nothing wrong with this, I'm just making up something, we should donate to the children in Africa. Oh, that is wonderful. But the need right now is maybe we have children, say it, Troy, we have children in our area that need food. We have children in our area that aren't reading well. Nothing wrong with going overseas, but sometimes you have to recognize the need here first. That good? Okay. All right. So that's when we're talking about administration, you all find yourself, some of you may be in administration roles now, or maybe something later, or in a nonprofit, and you're going to get gung-ho people that want to do great things, but you're going to have to say, hey, wait a minute, that need is wonderful, but we can't do that right now. We got to look at what's recognized in our area. All right. Ooh, we're doing good. Okay. Before we leave, we've got to talk about this. And I hate that I left it at the end, because this is going to be a part of your homework when you read the journal article, but I want to start talking about this, and I do want to tap on some of our members that are ministers. Let's talk about pastors, excuse me. Let's talk about pastors and stress. Pastors and stress. So as an administrator, the pastor has the weight of the organization or the weight of the church on his or her shoulders. And as we said in the chat, as we said today, you said it over and over again, the pastor has to be held accountable for everything, from the lights not working, the air not working, or till it's working very good. If it's working great, oh, you are kudo, right? But if we come to your church for a meeting and your air is not working, we're going to talk about you and you're going to get that. So all of that falls on the pastor's shoulders. It is no secret, y'all, that many pastors, unfortunately, are leaving the church. We heard about this thing during COVID called the Great Resignation. People were resigning their secular jobs. A lot of people said, yeah, I'm not doing this, right? Because they wanted to do something different, or they wanted to be more flexible with their children. But it also went over to the church as well. Pastors are leaving. Churches are closing their doors. So I want to talk about this thing of burnout. Pastors are feeling burnt out. On page hold on, in your book. On page 67, Dr. Taylor talks about stress, and it was really interesting. He said, there can be times when personal stress, okay, wait a minute. He said, somebody said, I've been at my church for 25 years. And he said, I felt like writing a resignation letter once a year, every year, because of the stress. It's often very lonely. Dr. Taylor said that many times the pastor masks how they feeling. They got to be upbeat and jovial. They don't want to come up to the pulpit bearing all of their burdens that, their kid is working their nerves or their spouse is working their nerves. They can't tell everybody that. On a serious note, we got to check in with folks. We might want to also list this in one of our go-to topics for our virtual forum about mental illness, depression. Uh, there have been stories, unfortunately, of pastors uh, during COVID, even before COVID, committing suicide because they don't know how to deal with their depression. Mental illness is real for all of us, pastors included. So I'm going to come back to you. Let's talk a little bit. Um, what are some ways what are some ways that a pastor can help avoid that stress? What are some ways that pastors can avoid stress? Stress is real. And if you serve in the role of pastor, if you have any tips or some things that you do, you can open your microphone, or if you want to put it in the chat.
Professor, this is Marshall. I think that exercise and taking care of yourself will help you with the stress.
Very good. You want to add a little bit more? Adding an exercise regimen. Let me say this. I have a few pastor friends that have had strokes, heart attacks, uh, just picking up, a additional pound or 2 or 3 or 20.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not exercising, not taking care of their temple the way that they should. You want to add any more on there, Marshall?
Yes, and so if you're not exercising, if you're going to Kentucky Fried Chicken all the time, they say
Right.
pastors like chicken, so that chicken can grow on you, and you have to be careful. And then also taking vacation, take time out for you and your wife, because not only the pastor can be stressed out, your wife can be stressed out over you. You're not giving her time. You're not taking time with the family and the children. And so allocate, out to your members and your stewards, your deacons, your trustees, and take some time for yourself.
That's good. Take a vacation. Um, and we know money is a big thing, right? I would love to go overseas somewhere. I don't have no money right there, like right now. But if you just take an hour drive to the mountains or something, Georgia has so many tucked away little places that we haven't even gone to. That could be something just wonderful for them to just spend the night in a hotel a day or two. Okay, so we said exercise. A lot of us are not exercising, walking. We're eating too much junk. And you put all that sugar, and God knows I love a Coca-Cola, but it's not good and it's building up in the wrong places. Vacation, taking time for family. Let me also put this on here too. I'm gonna get to you, Janice. Meditating. We don't know how to sit down and be quiet. Janice, we're gonna add this to our list. Said sharing your. Thank you, Janice. This should be number one. Seek professional help. All pastors and ministers, I'm gonna add that too, but especially when you're in the role of pastoral leadership, you need a counselor. You need somebody else that you can talk to outside of your partner or spouse or whatever, or outside of the people in the church. You can't talk to them about everything. Maybe you get an outside trained licensed person that you can talk to and say, oh, I'm feeling this way or that way. Especially, let me say this also, all of us have to take care of our mental health. And sometimes maybe the pastor is dealing with some mental health issues. And so maybe that mental health therapy will definitely help. Thank you.
Miss Berry,
Yes.
I have a question. So dealing with this, and I know maybe you can't answer it or whatever, but maybe someone can, I don't know. But dealing with this as well too, I feel like that as the community, like as the church, as the body, shouldn't we, even though that we're in the pulpit, like shouldn't we not be so hard or so like judgmental on the person as well too? Because it's like, yes, they are a pastor. How I see it is like, yes, they are a pastor, but they still pee, poop, bleed the same way that we all do as well too. They still are going to mess up just as well as I, as I or the next person as well too. So why is it that as a congregation, why are we putting so much pressure on him as if he's God and he's not, or she?
Well said. Well said. I add that in there as well, that there is onus with the congregation or with the community, recognizing that the leader is a human being, that the leader needs a break sometimes, that the leader can't be at the physical church 24/7, that they need to go home and guess what? Go to sleep.
Because like people, they'll just like, let's say like the pastor falls off or whatever the case is. I don't know. Pastor, like prime example, like the last time we had met, I wasn't there, but to add on to that question, you had asked about is it wrong for them to have like a luxury car or just something, things like that. And if I personally feel like if people were to get mad about that, like that's something that's dealing with you, because God never told us that we were broke anyways. He said he came so that we could be abundant in all ways, not just, spiritually, but financially, physically, emotionally, whatever the case is. So I just personally, I feel like that as a community, I feel that us as a people, we could be easy, like lighten the load up, unnecessary load up for the pastor, meaning trying to give him the weight of God when he's not God. Granted, he's an image, like how Moses was an image for the Israelites, but he's not God. We know that that's just the pastor.
You're right. And I think, did we say this last week that sometimes the church people may look to the pastor as God, and the pastor is not God, but the pastor has been called to do this particular work at that time to shepherd the the flock, and recognizing that the pastor is a human being.
Mm-hmm.
The pastor has deaths in their family. The pastor has sickness in their own bodies, or their family members are sick. So if their spouse is sick, um, my pastor years ago, his wife was very ill and had a surgery, and he said, I need to be with her. I need to take care of her, and she couldn't walk and things like that, and she couldn't drive, and so he took a few Sundays off to take care of her. And the people had the nerve to be like, well, where is he? And so on and so forth. Well, guess what? If their child or their spouse or their family member was sick, they would be over there with them, taking care of them. So I like that, Dejanier. The pastor is a human. Guess what? The pastor had a family.
Yeah, I
And
was gonna say that's his first ministry. That's his first ministry before the church. So we have to remember that as well too. Though, like, granted, we want the pastor to feed us, but what are you doing to feed yourself and to sustain yourself until Sunday or until the next time you see that pastor as well too?
yes, that's good. That's good. And Mr. Lee said, talk with other leaders. I like this, to see how they handle the stress of their position. Talking to other people in your same category and say, hey, I'm just really kind of stuck with this. What do you do? Talking to other people always helps to lighten the load. Talking to the right people. We always say that. Talk to the right people. So this is our list. Let's go back. How do we help them deal with stress? We said exercise, get up and move. Sometimes when we don't move around, you ever, especially during the COVID thing when we were quarantined and I was staying in the house too much. And I said, I got to get out and at least just walk around the neighborhood. Just getting out. And sometimes your mind, just set your mind free. Diet, watching what we eat, taking a vacation, take time for your family, talk to a licensed professional, get help, meditating, not be so judgmental of the pastor and of yourself. What do we say? Talk to other leaders in the same category and see how they handle stress. Okay. All right. This was a good session. We did good. Okay, it's 12:04. This was really good. Any questions? Okay, just a little caveat. I'm going to upload this PowerPoint. I will probably add a few more things because I did not get everything as pastor, as administrator. But I think in my own little, I don't serve as a pastor, but I'm on it. On the team of ministers. But I think that pastor as administrator, Gardner C. Taylor's chapter in chapter 4 is one of the most important ones because administration, preaching is wonderful and counseling is wonderful. We're going to talk about that too. But administration is the key piece that you're going to need to run the organization or to run the, religious organization or the church. Okay. And we said earlier as we started, if we don't have that, it's, Dejanir had a good one. If you don't have administration skills, you can learn them. You can learn them. Dejanir also added coloring, painting, dancing, or take a sabbatical. How did I forget that one? Thank you so much. There is a book, and I'm going to find this book. It's on my bookshelf. From Dr. Wimberly. Y'all remember Wimberly. And I'm going to get the name of the book. It's right there. I'm probably looking at it on my bookshelf. But he also suggested Dr. Ann Wimberly, and it's a husband and wife minister team, and they wrote this book. And they suggested taking a sabbatical for pastors to take a sabbatical every 6 to 7 weeks. And they said maybe just take a Sunday off, sit in the congregation. They said, pastors, how many times do you sit in the congregation and be fed? Let somebody else preach. Many times they let somebody else preach when they're not there, maybe, but let somebody else preach and you sit with your family that Sunday. Okay, very good. Oh, this is good. Good discussion, y'all. All right. Any other questions, comments? All right. This was wonderful. I'm going to stop recording.